He wants Jefferson, climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Come
on! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of UFC Fight Night, talking Saturday's September 2nd card, Gane versus Spivak. I'm, of course, DraftKings, joined today by the usual crew. We got Rekachik, we got Mad Lab, JSU conveniently missing another,
of course,
less than stellar card, but we'll get it done with the three-man booth, talking betting, DFS, all that good stuff. We'll throw it to you first, Mad Lab. How you doing on this Friday afternoon?
I'm good. What happened to Drew?
I don't know. Good question.
He just vanished. Nothing, man. This is a shitty card. You know, so convenient. I thought we were going to have some comic relief on here with JSU. He lost a bet to me. I forget what fight it was, but I know he lost. So I was going to have him take his pubic hair and put it on his mustache as a fucking.
Well, did you tell him that? Maybe that's why he's
no, I haven't told him shit. But that's what he has to do. He has to shave some pubic hair and make a mustache out of it. But what is it called? I don't know, man. This card is just not that good. I know I've been saying it for the past like 2-3 weeks. Like to pull back your bankroll, but I'm going to say it again. Like I'm not just going to keep. This is not a card that you guys want to invest heavy in. It's a card where a lot of times what they do is, there he is. There's Drew. They'll bring you on to they'll bring these fighters in from France because they obviously need the fan base to have something to root for. But these guys would never step into a cage in Vegas or another landslide. They're just kind of filling up the cards, and they're putting them against people who they're looking to exile. You know, there's certain fighters on this card that their back's against the wall. They don't want them on the roster. They want to trim the fat. So it's like a really trim the fat card, and it's not a card you really want to super invest heavy in. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I think it's good advice. I say this often. I think it's important to say, as analysts, as people that are, trusting us to invest their money, to try to express kind of your confidence level. It doesn't just go for UFC, it goes for other sports as well. Because, if you try to portray extreme confidence on every single fight or every single sport or card, then when you really are confident, right, it doesn't mean as much. So I do think that's a important thing to get out there before we go through this card. But Drew, of course, confident or not, there is big prize pools, as there always is for DFS industry, and we'll do our very best, of course, to try to get all the way to the top of the winner's circle. How you doing on this Friday afternoon, Drew?
Yeah, doing good. Sorry about that, guys. We had a hurricane come through here. Not as bad as the one that came for Mad Lab, but yeah, definitely some issues out there today. But yeah, last weekend, sorry we didn't do the show. It was, I think, just because not doing the show wasn't as great for me. I think I missed a couple of the dogs that maybe Mad Lab would have led me on. So I'm hoping to right the ship this week. I'm still leading the picks for RPS, so I'm holding on by a shred of confidence on that. On the picks for the RPS guys. So hoping I can pick Mad Lab's brain a little bit on this card.
Absolutely. 11 fight card. We did lose one fight on this card already. So a little bit of a shorter card for us. Hopefully all 11 will go off as planned. I believe all 22 fighters did make weight already today. So should end up being good. It is an earlier start. I think 12:30 Eastern time, I believe, is locked for DFS. So if you normally build your lineups in the morning, just be aware of that. Might need to get in tonight or early tomorrow morning. But with that, let's get to it. First fight on the card, we do go to the women's division. Pretty big favorite is Jacqueline Cavalcanti, minus 375 over Zara Farron. Farron, 3 straight losses in the UFC. Got to assume she, I think like a few fighters on this card, maybe Mad Lab, probably back against the wall here, probably needs a win to stay on the roster. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, this is a swan song for her, man. She's 39 years old. She's 0-3. She's not really going anywhere in the UFC. They had to make this a catch weight because there was no way she was making the weight that they wanted her to make. You got Cavalcanti coming in. She's really, she's not that good of a fighter, but she is active. She is fresh blood. She is under 30 years old. So what is the reasoning for Farron to win this fight? What do they have to gain? They have nothing to gain to bring a debuting fighter in, have her lose, and keep Farron on the card. They gave her chance. She hasn't made, made right of it. She's 0-3. Very lackluster fighter. Let me turn this off, guys. Hold on.
few technical difficulties to kick off.
Bro, even when I shut my messages off on my computer, they still ding. I don't know why. So, the thing with her is 39. What do you have to gain to have her on the roster? She's a cliffhanger right now. If you look, the first fight of the night, I always say, like, if you're a digressing fighter, they put you on that cliffhanger. If you lose, you're off the roster. So this is a roster spot where they're looking for her. They want her to lose. I think Cavalcanti gets it done. I don't like a price on 9,400 on any debuting fighter. Any debuting fighter, especially when you do have a girl with her back against the wall. She is from France. That does bring a little bit of element into it. But at the end of the day, the rightful side is Cavalcanti. I just, like I said, that price tag scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Drew, what do you have for ownership between these two and your thoughts on the fight overall?
Yeah, as we go through the ownership, I think it'll be evident of what this card kind of sets up for lineup construction because Mad Lab's right. Like Cavalcanti sets up great as an actual leverage spot at 9,400 for the implied odds, inside the distance number, everything. But at 9,400 on this card, which has a lot of, we'll talk about a fight here in a second that's really interesting, but a lot of good favorites in that 8K range to target as a kind of a way to get a little bit safe, I guess. I got her ownership at 37%, which typically is pretty low for these, big favorites in the 9K range. And arguably 9,400 is kind of cheap. But I think on this card, that's a little bit expensive for lineup construction. So I got her at 37%. Farron I got at 12%. With that being said, Cavalcanti provides like a pretty good leverage spot for how big of a favorite she is. And I won't have any Farron, but I just wanted to point that out as we go down the list. You're going to see some obvious spots where people are just going to jam in the mid range. And I don't know if they're going to play a lot of Cavalcanti relative to her, upside and her implied odds.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. I think a general point on this card. So we do have 3 fighters who are minus 300 or more, but then everyone else is less than minus 200. The favorite is so a whole, but 9 of the, or maybe 8 of the 11 fights are fights that, at least per the odds, could go either way. So I do think you're going to see, despite only 11 fights on the card, like some pretty spread out ownership and maybe even a potential unique winner on an 11 fight card. So I do think, listen, not the best fighters, I think it's safe to say on this card, but from a DFS perspective, I do think it's kind of a fun one. But that's Cavalcanti and Farron. We will move to the next fight. It is one of the 3 fights where there is a big favorite, Farid Basharat, minus 380 to 400 over Christensen Rodriguez. This one, a slight favorite, actually a moderate favorite to go to decision. So one that we could eventually see the cards. But let's get over to you, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, the Basharat brothers, bro. These guys are really catching a lot of steam. Both of these guys are really, really good. A lot of people mistake the two. Obviously, because not many people have that last name, but there are 2 brothers in the UFC that are doing very, very well. I like this guy a lot. I like both of them a lot. I think they're tied together very well. They got good grappling. They got good striking. They have patience. The problem that always arises for me in fights like this, that when you have an undefeated fighter, it's like you're always waiting for that O to go. It eventually goes. I mean, unless you're Khabib Nurmagomedov or something like that, like, it's on the horizon somewhere. And a lot of times it'll be like a blip in the radar and people will be like, oh my God, like maybe he wasn't as good as we thought we were. Listen, they're human, dude. Some guys just don't have good nights. And I'm not expecting that to be here. But what I am saying is that Christensen Rodriguez is a good fighter. He's not a bad fighter. There's a kid who ultimately did have trouble making weight in his last division. He's coming up to the division to kind of nullify some of that. And when you do that, people don't understand, like, the rehydration of a fighter when you are cutting so much weight. Your body might rehydrate, but it takes more than 24 hours for your brain to rehydrate. You know what I mean? So it really does. Like, your brain tells your limbs everything what to do. It goes to your brain tells your limbs react. So your reaction times, it throws your whole, genetic code off when you're having rough weight cuts. This is a better division. This is going to be a more comfortable division for him. I don't know what we're going to see from him, but the kid is tough. And when you're looking at Basharat, like, I'm looking at this fight, if he does win this fight, he's going to probably win it in the late third or decision. And anytime you're dealing with a $9,200 price tag, you're looking for a finish. Like, you're looking for a guy that you have like a overall confidence that he's either going to run roughshod on this guy or he's going to get a finish. And I don't know if Basharat's going to do that. I do think he wins this fight. I do think this is a spot that he's going to win. But I think there's going to be situations where you're going to be on your seat a little bit. Rodriguez is going to put him into some spots that he's going to have to work out of. So that $9,200 price tag is all predicated on how active he's going to be, because I have this one going to the cards.
Yeah, makes sense. It is a favorite to go to the cards. Drew, I think, the first choice maybe a lot of people make building their lineups is going to be which of these two early 9K fighters you go to. You can get them both in your lineup if you want to, but I think a lot of people will be choosing between the two. So where do you lean between Basharat and Cavalcanti, and what do we got for ownership between these two?
Yeah, I think Morgan, who I'm not going to take a guess on if it's a boy or girl yet. I'm assuming it's a boy based on Manolo. As the other fighter, Mad Lab will get on to me. Already messed up one gender. But I think Morgan actually will get a lot of the ownership, or the first click, I should say. So Basharat I have at 34%. Again, to your point, it's going to be pretty spread out. And I think the only question I have for Mad Lab is just looking through the numbers that Vegas has, they seem pretty confident that he could win this via submission, or at least he has a chance to win via submission, which means he would be on the ground with them. So I'm wondering if the control time would be enough to warrant the price tag even without a finish.
Yeah,
that would be the thought.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like late, like I would say, like if he were to finish it, it'd probably be like late third round submission. The thing with Rodriguez is, he's a good fighter in a weight class where he had difficulty cutting. Now he's in a weight class where he's comfortable. So you got to wonder, like, where is his strength index going to be? Where is his explosion going to be? It can only be better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead of jumping the gun for me and saying, well, Basharat's going to take him down, he's going to control him there for 3 rounds, and he's going to get total control time, I got to bake in the fact that Rodriguez is not a bad fighter, and he wasn't a bad fighter in a division that he was having trouble cutting weight in.
Right. So you're a little
I'm skeptical.
hesitant.
I'm hesitant on how dominant he's going to be in this fight. Yeah.
I'm with you. Okay. Yeah. So like that would be my only thing is if you had the idea that, he could actually control it on the mat, then Basharat, I think, is a good score at 9,200, even 100%. If he doesn't win inside the distance. Again, I think Morgan's the better play in a vacuum or a blanket, whichever way you want to go. But yeah, for me, I'll take Basharat, and I won't have any Rodriguez. Real quick though, Mad Lab, did you see the girl's video? She was cutting weight.
Wait, hold on, DC. Why are you making that face?
What's the in a blanket thing? I think I missed.
That's a JSU thing. Okay. I don't know. He came up with something, and then I said in a vacuum, and then he corrected me and said, no, it's in a blanket. And I was like, what?
No, I don't.
So,
no.
Yeah, it happened on a show. You were out backpacking, I think.
Yeah.
So Mad Lab, there's a video on Twitter. This girl is cutting weight. She came out of a sweat blanket or something, and she's like about to die. I don't know if you saw that video, but to your point about cutting weight, it seemed like that was down the path of she cut weight. She's going to weigh out that afternoon, I guess, and then she's going to rehydrate for a fight in 2 days.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, there's so many different ways you can weight cut. They do a very dangerous one, but an effective one is like water loading, where you actually water load your body to the point where your body says, fuck this, like I got to get rid of it. And it's actually very dangerous. You're almost drowning your body with water. And there's I've been involved in weight cuts. I'll give you a quick story. I did a weight cut for a girl named Michelle Mills for ADCC. ADCC is the most prestigious grappling tournament in the world. Well, one of them. And she flew in from New Mexico, and she stayed with me for like a week, and she lied to me the whole time. I was calling her, and I was like, where's your weight at? Where's your weight at? Where's your weight at? And she was telling me when she got off the plane, I knew visually she was completely off weight, completely off weight. So I called my friend who owned the Gold's Gym, and I said, listen, man, I need your facility overnight. Like, I'll sign a waiver. I'll do whatever I need to do. He actually did. He made me sign a waiver. And we use like this stuff called Abilene, and you rub it all over the body. You wrap them up. And I literally had her like in a boiler room on a spin bike, taking caps of water like this and spitting it out, like to the point where she couldn't even walk, you know what I mean? And that, so then you do the hot water baths, then you do the wraps like you're talking about. Like there's so many different angles you could take for it, but when you go those paths and you're trying to figure out how I could squeeze a little, that's bad news. That's bad news,
Just trying to think forward to like, how are you going to recover from that to fight? Like being healthy and fighting is one thing, and then to do that is just crazy. So props to her if she's, I don't know who it was going to win or what, but yeah, some crazy stuff with the weight cutting. Sorry, DC.
If you want to watch something, watch you can watch on YouTube. There's a video of Christina Cyborg years ago doing a weight cut. They document the whole thing where she's crying and it's crazy what these people go through.
Sounds miserable, to be honest.
DC can never do it, dude. If I had to ever cut weight for DC, I would like dangle pizza over his nose and shit.
That's why he put the fight off. That's why he keeps pushing the fight off. He can't cut weight, or actually, he probably had to gain a little bit of weight. You're in a good spot.
All right. Let's move to the next fight. That's the two of the biggest favorites on the card, Basharat and Cavalcanti. So, like I said, a big decision there. What you do with those two. Let's get to one that's pretty close to a coin flip. Jocelyn Edwards minus 115 over Nora Cornell. We'll go with that, making her UFC debut here. Edwards does have, I think, 6 fights in the UFC. All 6 have gone to decision. She's won 4, so she's performed well there, but hasn't scored over 100 points in any of them, which obviously isn't great for DraftKings DFS purposes. But let's get your breakdown of Edwards and Cornell, Mad Lab, and then we'll go to Drew for ownership.
Yeah, no, she, Edwards, people hate on her, but I will tell you one thing about her is that she looked probably the best I've ever seen her look on the scales today. And, she looked in really good shape. Her waistline was really tapered and tight. Her abs were showing. She did not look like she struggled. Like sometimes it takes you a little while to figure out the mechanics of your body, what works and what doesn't. It's almost like a diet, right? You know what foods will work. Sometimes the same thing with weight cutting. You know it seems like she's got her weight cutting down. She took this camp really, really seriously. She does have a good background. If you look at some of the camps that she's trained at, Tiger Muay Thai with, the Shevchenko sisters and stuff. So she's a good fighter, but she is the type of person that fights to the level of her competition, which tends to bring her fights to the cards. You know what I mean? And she doesn't have the overall best cage IQ. But this is a spot for her where I got to be honest with you. Like I think she wins this fight. I think this is a fight where she just shows that her, her veteran savvyship against this girl who is a wild child, who kind of comes in, throws caution to the wind, looks to finish early. And I think that's where the window for her to win this fight is at 7,900 is that first round area. Like I get on Edwards, smother her, don't give her time to breathe, catch her with something, fight over. If this goes into the second round, though, this is where Edwards starts taking over her fight. She gets better as the fights go on. She starts getting her timing down. She starts leashing you into her style of fight and make you desperate. So, the pricing's tough because if you look at her stats from a DraftKings perspective, she's only hit 8,300 1 of 5 times. So she's only hitting at a 20% clip at her current market value. But in a fight like this, like, where you're looking for value, but you're also looking for solid wins where there's a lot of guys on this card that are really hard to gauge if they're going to win or not. She's not a horrible play. Like I wouldn't consider her a horrible play. I wouldn't consider her a normal DraftKings play. Like this is a fight where I probably overall would fade, but on a card like this, I don't hate, taking a stab at Edwards here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, I think this card, perhaps, Drew, you won't need quite as big of scores, I think, to get to the top potentially. But yeah, your thoughts here, Edwards and Cornell.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup looking through it. Obviously, Edwards is the money line favorite, but Cornell with the round by round favorite to win round 1, round 2, round 3, etc. So it's interesting to see the dynamic there. So I lean Cornell for that reason. As far as ownership, Edwards is 25% and I have Cornell at 29%. Yeah, I'll be underweight this fight. Not one I really want to target. There's a couple fighters below this that I think have potential for more upside. So again, I lean Cornell here as a salary saver. I guess you could play in the mid range if she does win inside the distance, but I'm going to be underweight.
Want to have a bet with me?
Yeah. What do you got?
All right. We'll knock it up as a bet and we'll figure it out what it is. Right?
Don't you dare pick against Mad Lab, Drew. He's coming for you.
I know.
Do something gross next show.
I'm withdrawing my entries just as we speak.
Bro, JSU has to paste fucking pubic hair to his nose. That's what I'm making up.
He might do that already at these weddings he keeps showing up to.
I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you want to make bets with Mad Lab if he just gets to choose what you have to do if you lose. Like it's not even. It's just. It's an.
Yeah, we haven't chose anything. For
at the end of the show, we'll figure it out.
That's fine. Yeah. So you think this goes to the cards, or you think?
I think it goes to the cards. Yeah, I think.
Okay, I mean that's fair. I'm just saying I would play Cornell in this spot in DraftKings. I'd be underweight the fight, but Cornell would be my side at 7,900. 8,300 seems a little bit steep if it does go to the cards. 7,900 has a little bit of wiggle room.
All right,
that's kind of my thoughts.
All right, we'll keep moving. Next fight on the card is Reese McKee, who is a slight underdog here to Angel Lusa, who is minus 170. We'll go right to you, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two?
This one's interesting to me, man, because when we talk about like physical attributes and you look at these guys where they size up, like Reese McKee's a big dude. You know what I mean? And when you look at his resume when he was in the UFC brought him in, utilized him as a slaughtered lamb. I mean, they brought this guy in on a debut to fight Chimaev. I mean, What are you doing? You know, so the kid obviously lost. Then they bring him back and he fights who's the kid from Texas?
Morono.
Alex Morono. Another tough dude. I mean, doesn't get the credit he deserves. Another tough dude. So, he was a slaughtered lamb to these guys. Now he leaves. He ends up going on the regional circuit. He wins a couple fights. He comes back. The problem with this guy is that, like, there's sometimes where range means a lot. Like, if you know how to utilize your range, it means a lot. Like, Stefan Struve didn't know how to utilize his range. McKee doesn't really know how to utilize his range that much, where Lusa is extremely durable, so he can kind of take the punishment while he's charging the pocket. He's the better athlete. He can take it to the ground if he wants to. He's got very good takedown defense if McKee gets in trouble and tries to take it to the ground. I just think there's more paths for Lusa to win this fight. I think McKee can ultimately win if he really worked out his range and understands that he should always be able to own the real estate in the cage, but he hasn't really shown it to me. I mean, he's a tough kid. He's durable. He's got decent striking, but he still hasn't figured out like exactly how to utilize his physical attributes where Lusa can kind of just charge the pocket. He knows he's strong. He knows he's explosive. He knows he's athletic. So if even if this fight goes to the cards, it's just the optics of who's coming forward and who's the more aggressive guy. The problem is the price tag. That $8,800 price tag. McKee is overall a pretty tough kid. You're just not going to get him out of there, at least historically from what I've seen. So that concerns me a little bit. I see some value on McKee, but like I say, it's all predicated on if this kid can really find rhythm and tempo with his range.
Yeah, I could see this fight going either way. It is, I think, pretty much a coin flip to go the distance or not, to go to the cards. Kind of another tough one, Drew, I think, for DFS. I do think Lusa may be the more likely to finish, but what do you see between Lusa and McKee?
Yeah, Lusa's definitely more likely to finish. But he's also going to be somewhat popular relative to his upside, I think. I got him at 33%. So McKee I have at 22%. And to be honest, like just from a probability standpoint, it's 60% money line for Ange, and Reese is at 40%. So like I think there's a little bit of value at 7,400 for Reese. I'm going to lean that side for DFS, and I'll be underweight on Lusa. Again, I just think at the ownership and for the lack of finish, potentially Lusa is a tough one to me to buy into.
Yeah, I think that's fair for Lusa and McKee. We'll keep it moving. We will stay in the men's division, Drew, and go to Taylor.
Thank you.
Lapilus.
I'm struggling with these names, man. You could
like
7 of them.
I'm going to tell him. I don't give a shit. When we were on the back end of this before we started, he starts talking to me about Loughran, and he's saying she, her, she. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about?
I just put a chat in Mad Lab in private chat. I just thought Angie and Reese was like 2 girls.
That's great. I should have never fucking said anything, dude. Oh, God.
Yeah. But we are sure that these are actually men fighting in this one. And it is Lapilus, who is another moderate fave. Again, a bunch of those on this card. He's sitting around minus 175 over Colin Loughran. Back to you, Matt Lab. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, these prices never change. These guys were supposed to fight 2 different people, and obviously, the way DraftKings works that. But if you look at DraftKings, you see Lapilus at the $8,600 dog, and Loughran's price never changed at $9,300. So right out of the gate, right there, there's a discrepancy, and you know where you should be targeting. You know what I mean? So Loughran's a tough kid. The kid is someone that the UFC does want on the roster, because if you guys watch the weigh-ins, you'll see this kid came out. He was giving everybody the bird. He's very brash, very confident. He's trying to be marketable. He's trying to have a personality, and he's a good fighter. He's a very volatile, come in your face, throw heavy hands, try to knock you out. He's a good fighter. But I just don't like this matchup for him at Lapilus. I think Lapilus is just a better athlete. He's more explosive. I think he has him a little bit everywhere outside of the power. And I think it's going to really, really throw off Loughran in some spots. And can Loughran win the fight? Yeah, 1,000% he could win the fight. But $9,300 on him is not a price tag I'm looking to invest heavy in. Lapilus, on the other hand, because I think that a lot of people like Loughran, they see the weigh-ins, they see how funny he is, how brash he is. Like that automatically pulls casuals onto him because he's likable. You know what I mean? So, I think he's probably going to get a little bit more ownership than he deserves. And that'll pull me onto Lapilus a little bit more. So I do like Lapilus mildly in the fight. And I think the price on him is value just because he is legitimate favorite.
Yeah, I would say, Drew, Lapilus is kind of priced appropriately, right, for a small favorite at 8,600, and then Loughran is the one that's, the obvious misprice on this card, right? A $9,300 dog because the pricing comes out, the fights get changed, all that stuff, which I assume means Loughran, I would guess, is maybe the lowest owned fighter on this card. Nobody wants to pay $9,300 for a sizable dog, but tell me what you got for the numbers, and then spots like these where the pricing structure is kind of thrown into disarray, they do present sometimes some leverage opportunities. So curious your thoughts on this fight.
Yeah, this one's tough. I got Loughran at 20%, but that even still feels high.
There's no way he's going to be 20. There's no way Loughran's going to be 20%, is there?
Yeah, it's got to be like 12, right?
Yeah.
At the most. So, yeah, you just fade him in this spot. There's no ownership gap that would even make him playable, I don't think. Even in the largest field, it doesn't even make sense. So Lapilus I have at 30%, which seems fair for he's pretty fairly priced, 8,600.
Yep.
I don't love it though at the spot. There doesn't seem like a bunch of upside compared to Vulcan right above him, Gane or Gane, whatever, Cyril. I can pronounce that. So I honestly think this fight's just a cross off for me. There's obviously, I'm not playing Loughran. It doesn't make any sense. Even in 150 entries, you just fade that spot every single time and you're going to be plus EV. But Lapilus, I still don't think there's upside. And I think he's going to be 30% owned. And that's a spot that I can also fade and get different elsewhere.
I agree.
I think it's totally fair. That's kind of my approach to it. I think I would lean the Lapilus side if I'm going to either one, but I do think it's fair to cross that fight off, move on to the next one, which we will do now. Two fighters making their UFC debuts. It is the Frenchman, Morgan Charriere, who is a big favorite, minus 350 over Manolo Zucchini. I'll be honest, Mad Lab did not watch the tape on these two. I'm sure you have. What'd you see for these two fighters?
Well, I don't know why the UFC wants to do the Italians like this all the time. They're literally it's crazy, bro. It's like we never get a break. We thought we had a break with a couple guys, and here we go again. Now they're taking one of my fellowmen and they're throwing him against this guy who, believe it or not, France loves. Like, this dude is very, very high profile in France for a regional circuit guy. I'm not super impressed with his approach, but I'm super impressed with his skill set, if that makes any sense. His skill set is there. Like, he's a very well-rounded fighter. He's smart. He does the right things. I don't like his approach because he definitely fights up and down to his competition, and he tends to have really close fights when he has no business having some of these fights that are close. That's what ultimately scares me about this fight. I do think far and away this is his fight to win. I think the UFC knows that, like, Francis, you're going to see a pop from the crowd for this guy just as big as anybody on the card. Like, they love this kid. But this is a split decision guy. This is a guy that, he goes to the cards and you're wondering, did he win? Did he win? It's just the way he fights. And at $9,100, like, you got to bake in a little bit. Okay, now he's in the big time. Now this is a big spot for him. Is he going to get nervous, or is he going to come out and say, fuck this, now I'm going to put on a show? You don't know what he's going to do. But if he fights his normal way, his normal prowess, it's $9,100 can be scary. I do think there's no reason why he shouldn't win this fight. They're taking one of my fellowmen and throwing up to him to be like sliced pepperoni here. But I don't know, man. $9,100 is a really tough tag on a guy who fights up and down to his level of competition, So I don't know what the ownership is. I don't have it in front of me. I know Drew's going to say it in a minute. So this is going to be all ownership predicated on how deep I'm going to go on this kid.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So do you, Drew, Zucchini, Charriere, what do you see?
Yeah, he's going to be up there. I got him at 39%, and that could honestly go a little bit higher if I move some of this Loughran ownership. Which should be moved anyways. But yeah, I got him at 40%, we'll call it. And then Zucchini at 14%. It seems like Mad Lab, you're somewhat hesitant for how Morgan is going to handle this fight.
I don't think a shot in hell he loses, but I'm just nervous. Let's put it this way. In cash games, he's a lock.
Okay, that's fair. His inside the distance number is huge. And even his round one distance, like round one win number is huge. He's 27% to win in round one. He's 50% to win inside round one or round two. So for that reason, I like Morgan quite a bit. I mean, just match the field on him is my take. 9,100, I think, is plenty of upside if he does finish inside the distance, which Vegas thinks he's going to do.
Well, what do you have him at right now?
I'm at 40%.
Okay, so I have him locked in for my rosters from when I construct at 45%. So I'm about
so just with the field, that's fine. So I think from what I'm looking at, 9,100. If we're just take the name away, look at what Vegas is implying that he's going to win inside of round 3, just going to win inside the distance. I mean, he's 50% inside of round 2. With the other fighters above 9K, he's the best play in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So that I'm pretty heavy on Morgan, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I do think, I mean, based on the numbers, the most likely to finish inside the distance. But yeah, always tough, I think, with two fighters making their debuts to just be that confident. So we'll see how it goes down between.
It allows you to play a lot of the 8Ks, which are all, just slight favorites, but at least you're building around, somewhat of a solid floor of you're getting 4 favorites in there, and you can mix and match some like medium dogs. So once you go up to Jacqueline, that kind of opens it up. You're going to have to punt off at least 2 cheap 7Ks. I think 9,100 Morgan with the upside, even I think he's still a better play than Jacqueline. So yeah, Morgan's probably my favorite play on the slate, at least. Yeah, I think he's my favorite play on the slate.
Why do you keep using their first names?
Because I can't pronounce Sharif. That sounds dumb.
Morgan, Jacqueline.
I definitely do the same thing when I'm unsure about a name. I'll like say it a little softer and then not say it again, right? Just bring it up.
Oh, if I'm really unsure, I'll just say the price.
Yeah.
You know what I do when I type my article? Like as I'm typing it, if their names are too long, I literally just put their initials.
Yeah. Well, I can't do that
like
on
JD
a video
or whatever.
MC.
Yeah.
It gets the point across. That's the most important thing. Let's get to the main card. Before we do, a reminder to hit the like, hit the subscribe. Does allow us to bring you guys these shows free of charge each and every week. And over at runpuresports.com, we do have a big promo running still, I believe, up until the NFL season, which starts 6 short days. So NFL is upon us. NFL 17 will get you 17% off for life. You'll get Mad Labs breakdowns of each and every card. NFL, we've got MLB still going on, basketball around the corner, PGA, UFC, everything over at runpuresports.com. All right, let's get to the main card. Another fight that did get moved around a little bit, but it is William Gomis minus 200 over Yanis Gamuri. Back to you, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two Frenchmen?
Yeah, this is interesting because this kid Gomis, like if you look at him and you look at his offense, a lot of people just look at their offensive output, right? And they're like, all right, well, this guy's, he's not that, he's not that big of a pressure fighter. He doesn't throw a lot of volume, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But the one thing that this guy does do that people don't look at is he's a really good defensive fighter. Like he doesn't get hit, and if you look at his record, I mean, it indicates why he's winning fights because what he lacks in his offense, he makes up for his defense. You know what I mean? So this guy is a really tough guy to pin down. He's a tough guy to make a read on, and he just makes it very difficult to hit. So if he's not getting hit and he's hitting you minimally, but he's still hitting you, the judges see that. The judges see, all right, well, listen, like the guy's not getting hit. He's not doing a lot, but he's still landing the overall output in the offense in each round. So that's where this guy becomes difficult. You know what I mean? Do I agree with the odds at 2-1? No, I don't. I think they should be a little bit tighter, but I do believe this is going to be one of those boring fights where Gomis uses his defensive prowess to not get hit, stay out of trouble, pick and choose his spots, as boring as it may be, and land on the other side of a W. Both of these guys are from France, so that's another problem here, that you guys can have a very close decision where they're not going to lean one or the other way. It doesn't matter. They're both Frenchmen. If Gomis was fighting a guy who wasn't French, I'd be a little bit more adamant on his side. So I see this fight going to the cards. I do see Gomis winning this fight. I don't know how comfortably, but I do see him winning. As far as the price tag, you got to factor that in. $8,400 price tag on a guy who is a very good defensive fighter, but utilizes his defense as a form of offense. And that's not really what you look at in these spots. So price isn't terrible for him if he gets the win, but like I said, you got to factor in the low output of him.
Yeah, I mean, in his last fight, Drew, Gomis won via decision. Didn't have a takedown, no knockdown, only 17 seconds of control time in one with just 30 total strikes landed, which is about as frankly a low number as you're going to see without any takedowns or anything like that. So, yeah, obviously Mad Lab probably not the best fight for DFS purposes, but curious where you're at with Gomis and Gamuri.
Sounds like the Salvador fight from like a month ago where you just slap at him and then do the whole twirl. I don't know how that fight would go down. That's an odd win. So I actually side a little bit with Giannis here for two reasons. As far as ownership goes, I got Gomis at 32% and Giannis at 19%. So the ownership definitely is a nice angle at 6,900 for a slight dog, we'll call it. But I think the angle that I like for the dog in this particular spot is if it does go to the cards, that gives me a little bit of an opening that Giannis can still score as a score that's optimal, considering the rest of the lineup construction. So I don't mind William here. I mean, he's low. He's definitely probably one of my lowest rated guys in the 8K range. So I'll have a little bit, but I definitely lean a little bit more Giannis from a DFS perspective, just because of that angle. 6,900 opens up some unique lineup construction that I don't think a lot of people will go to. He's still, a relatively decent chance to win via money line at least. And again, at 6,900, we'll call it 18% ownership. Giannis would be the play for me. I wouldn't go crazy over the field, but definitely want to have some exposure. And again, going to the cards just opens it up to a lot of different paths.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you're saying, because if you think about it, even if you're picking a loss, right, you're looking. I mean, not that you want to pick a loss, but you're picking guys who you think the fight's going to go to the cards. And if Gomis is going to take the approach where, if he's going to take the approach where he's going to fight defensively, and there's a possibility that this can be a close on the cards, two guys from France, I don't hate it at all.
I mean, if Gomis has that low of output, even if the defense is good, there's always a chance that the refs just get it wrong. And Gamuri, at his price point, 6,900, a win, no matter how he gets it, might be enough, like you said, Drew. So I do think it makes sense, just from a game theory perspective, to be overweight a little bit.
I mean, his money line numbers are the same from Thiago, Bogdan, Sergey. Like, they're all the same, any 6,900. So it just opens it up a lot differently than you would play any of those 7K guys.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. Next fight on the card, Volkan Oezdemir. Again, a modest favorite, minus 190 or so over Bogdan Guskov. Oezdemir, we do have a decent UFC sample size, a big UFC sample size on him, kind of been up and down. So obviously you'll have a good opinion on him, Mad Lab. What is it on Oezdemir and Guskov?
Yeah, so this is the fight you guys want to target. I have this going. Like I said, I don't have the ownerships in front of me. I haven't finished them yet, so Drew will handle those, and then that'll really tell me how much weight I'm going to put in. But this fight's definitely going inside the distance, in my opinion. You got a guy in Guskov who, if you look at him on paper, like you see, like, wow, this guy's got a high finishing upside. He had a fight that he won in like 25 seconds, and that's all fine and great. But that's the optics of paper. When you go into the film and you really start diving deep, you see that this guy fought nobody but fucking popsicle stand workers, like literally nobody. Doesn't mean he's not a bad fighter. I'm a good fighter. Doesn't mean he can't come in and win this fight, but he's going to come in on 2 weeks' notice, and he's going to charge the pocket, and he's going to try to make something happen, because if the longer this fight goes, his gas tank is going to start dwindling. Oezdemir, on the other hand, this is a guy who, when he first came into the UFC, I don't know what people saw in him, but everybody was like, oh, this guy's going to be like a champion just because he had a couple, flash knockouts in the beginning of his career. He's got good power, but he doesn't have the power that people think he has. The difference in this fight for me is just the overall experience. Like, I think Oezdemir is the type of kid who is, he's been there. He wears his scars on his face. He's been in some wars. He's won some big fights. He's lost some big fights. He's had some disappointing losses, some really, high-end highlight reel wins. He's been there. He's been in the muck of it all. You know what I mean? And I think if he just survives this first round, he's going to end up catching Guskov in a firefight, and he's going to end up knocking him out. So I do like Oezdemir by knockout in this fight. I do think this is a fight you want to target, because it's either going to be Guskov early or Oezdemir late. And both of these guys, one guy's sub 9,000, which is the one I like, and the other one's sub 8,000. I think it's a fight you definitely want to target.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense to me. What is this, minus 500 to finish inside the distance, Drew? Really stands out on this card in particular, right, where we do have a whole bunch of fights that are either favored to go the distance, coin flips to go the distance, that type of thing. So I am with Mad Lab. I think I'll have close to 100% of this fight, and frankly, maybe close to an even split between the two. Don't think I want to make a stand between these two, but I definitely want to be invested in this fight overall. Your thoughts here, Drew?
Yeah, I think you could probably go 60-40 Vulcan in Bogan. I lied. I think Vulcan's probably my favorite play over Morgan, actually. And a lot of it has to do with the inside the distance in 8,600, just a slight difference there. But as far as ownership goes, I got Vulcan at 33% and Guskov at 21%. So, yeah, Guskov is definitely in play. 7,600, good inside the distance number for the price. And so there's obviously some upside there. A different angle than the Giannis we just talked about. But yeah, Vulcan, 8,600. I got 60% inside the distance. He's 33% to win in round 1, 50% inside of round 2. Ton of upside. And at 8,600, honestly, it could even go to the cards if it's a lot of significant strikes and still do pretty well. So yeah, love Vulcan here. Be overweight on both fighters. So to your point, DC, I think this is a great fight to target.
Yeah, 100% with you. Should be a good one. And really, this card definitely starts slow, but I think these last 4 fights, starting with Guskov and Oezdemir, and then the final 3, I think are all pretty good fights that I'm looking forward to watching. And honestly, I think all 4 fights could go either direction. So yeah, I think this card will end strong. The next fight we'll talk about Benoit Saint-Denis, another Frenchman who has been pretty damn impressive in his last 3 fights, finished all 3 of them inside the distance, big DraftKings scores in all 3. He is a modest favorite, minus 165 over another longtime UFC veteran, Thiago Moises. Let's go over to you, Mad Lab. What do you see between these two, and who's the pick to win this fight?
BSD is a guy that I haven't picked against yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even with Bonfin, when everybody was, kind of on Bonfin, like I was trying to explain to people, like this guy's just a different fighter. He's got a different mindset. Like it's not just about physicality and talent. It's also about mindset, where you've been, what your roots are. And this dude is like Navy SEAL material, outside of the cage. You know what I mean? So that says something about his character and his will. However, like we always say, like there's going to be these spots where they look human, they're kind of humanized, and people look at Moises like he's a scrub, and it's kind of crazy to me because Moises is a guy who, you just said it just now, he's like a veteran of the UFC, but he's still under 30 years old. The guy's like 27 years old. The guy still has a lot of room to grow. People that are on Twitter and on YouTube and stuff saying that BSD's grappling is better than Moises, they are out of their fucking minds. Moises' grappling has the edge in grappling if this goes to the ground. That's actually his path to win. Even though BSD has really good grappling, talent for talent, skill for skill, technical ability for technical ability, Moises is the better grappler. It's not even a question. The problem with Moises is his will. Is he going to be able to last in these long exchanges with BSD when he's coming forward and he's hitting him and he's taking punishment? Is he going to be able to jump into a foxhole with BSD? I don't know. I'm not willing to count Moises out here. I am going to pick BSD, but I'm picking him with a lot less confidence than I've ever have before because I do think Moises is the type of kid where he is young. He still is getting better. He does have the grappling. His striking is getting better. He does tend to fade down the stretch a little bit, but he's getting better. This is going to be a tough fight. Like if people think that BSD is just going to come in here and walk this guy on a leash and finish him, they're mistaken. I think this fight has a good probability, possibly even go to the cards. You know what I mean? So I do like BSD to win this fight. I think both of their prices are fine. I don't mind BSD at all at 8,500 because the volatility, the volume, everything's going to be there. And Moises has value too because at 7,700, he could surprise a lot of people if he gets some top control and he starts stringing some grappling exchanges together. So I like this fight for both sides. I wouldn't be super confident on BSD if I was anybody. I'd be more confident with him than Moises, but Moises is definitely live in this spot.
Yeah, it makes sense. And just from a line setting perspective, I'm a little surprised that BSD is not a bigger favorite than minus 165 here, given the hype around him, given the fact that, Moises, I think people kind of, you can kind of tell he's not going to be a title contender, right? He's been around long enough. You've seen enough from him that sometimes these fighters get written off early, like you say. And I'm just a little, I don't know. I'm surprised BSD's not like minus 200 or more, which just makes me a little suspicious that maybe there might be an upset brewing in this one. But let's go to you, Drew. What do you see for the numbers, ownership-wise, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so ownership, I got BSD at 35%. Use an acronym there, Mad Lab. You like that? Thiago at 21%. So actually mainly because of ownership, but I like both sides of this fight. BSD, I think at the price, there's really no way around not playing him in some lineups. I mean, 8,500, he's going to fit. He's a favorite. He could finish inside the distance. Like, he just fits a lot of builds, and it just makes sense to include him. But I think Thiago makes sense at 7,700. Only 21% owned. I have him as a slight leverage spot. Again, I'll slide with BSD, but from a DFS perspective, for sure, I'm going to have some Thiago. And honestly, there's only like 3 guys in the 7Ks that you probably want to include in your pool or at least focus on. So Thiago would be one of those that, to Mad Lab's point, I mean, if it goes to the ground, he has a chance to finish inside the distance. It likely goes to the cards. That's probably my take. But BSD, we might play 8,500, 35% owned. I think you're in line with ownership at that price and at that ownership.
When you look at, you guys just got to look at their resumes. Like, if you look at Moises' resume, this is a guy who fights. He tends to win fights that he's supposed to win. And as soon as they give him that one guy that can kind of bump him up, that's when he tends to lose. I mean, he came off the Contender Series. He fought Beneil Dariush on his debut. Like, that's not an easy fight to take on a debut fight. He loses there. He beats Kurt Holloway. Demirez Magulov, another stud back then, he loses to. Then he beats Michael Johnson. He beats Bobby Green. He beats Alexander Hernandez. Then they give him Islam Makhachev on a 3-fight winning streak. He loses there. So it's like he beats Christian Giago. It's like he beats all the guys that he's supposed to beat. And then those upper echelon guys is the ones he drops to. So don't look at the sea of red that he has, because a lot of those fights are high level guys. This is going to be a good fight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun one to watch. I think these last 2 will be fun as well. The undefeated, at least in the UFC, Mangone, Fiorot has won 5 straight fights in the UFC. Yeah, she's been impressive. Kind of a little mix of everything. And then fighter that I always have a trouble getting a handle on, Rose Namajunas. A lot of impressive fights, some not so much. And just, I don't know. I just have I've seen all these fights, but just a hard time kind of describing her style, I guess, to some extent. So I've been pretty interested to hear your breakdown of this one and of course, the next one as well, Mad Lab. So take it away, Rose and Fiorot.
The price makes no sense to me. 0. This line is completely off. Like, when you look at Fiorot, does she have some good wins? Absolutely. Is she talent? Absolutely. Is she home? Absolutely. Like, this girl is good, but she's a bully, and she was able to bully her way through a lot of these fights. And if that's the path that you take, having some skill set and being a bully, great. You guys are talking about Rose Namajunas here, though, a girl who's beaten the best of the best. Like, if you're looking at some of her losses, if you're looking at the one loss that she had to Jessica Andrade, where she was slammed on the canvas and she hit the beam under the canvas and got knocked out, like, I don't count that as a loss. If you're looking at her last fight, where it was a complete stinker of a fight, where she just didn't even look like she got off the bus, I get it. But you got to understand, like, skill-wise, this girl is one of the most talented fighters on the roster. When she's dialed in, she's one of the most talented women on the roster. I mean, she's got nasty striking. She's got, a head kick that you'll never see coming. She'll tell you it's coming in a couple seconds, and you won't see it coming. Her grappling is completely off the chains. She's extremely cerebral. She's extremely smart. The problem with her is she's mentally checked out in some fights, and that's my issue with Rose Namajunas. Another issue I have is her bumping up in weight for this fight, where Mannon's going to be a little bit bigger than her. But the one thing that Rose does when she's dialed in is she's done this since the beginning of her career. She has this thing in her mind where she builds storylines. And the storyline is she was very picked on when she was a kid. So she comes into these fights like, I'm being bullied. I got to beat up the bully. Mannon is a bully. That's exactly what she does. She goes in there and bullies you. So this is a fight where I can honestly see Mannon taking the first round, because Rose has to get her timing down. Rose is, she hasn't been in the cage for a while. Then all of a sudden, maybe you got a close second round where you're a little on the fence. And then all of a sudden, Rose has her dialed in, and Rose is just kind of picking her apart at range. A 75% Rose beats 100% Fiorot. That's the best way I can. But are we going to get a 75% Rose? I don't know. But a 75% Rose beats 100% Fiorot. I think she's 7,300. If she wins this fight, you will never, ever see that price again on Rose. I think it'd be ludicrous to draw a blind eye to that. Even at her price tag, I see that the Vegas lines is coming down. People are starting to give Rose a little bit more love, but she's still a dog in this fight. I understand why she is. I understand all the question marks, but people got to understand that people are human. Like, these guys and girls wake up on the wrong sides of the beds. They have points and times in their career where they maybe don't want to be there, and then they have these resurgence. Like, Rose is not a girl to just check out on. I don't see any justification in 7,300, and I don't see any justification in the line. I'm going with Rose, man. I'm not gonna. She loses this fight and she gets embarrassed in this fight, then I'll reassess my takes on her. But Rose got to show me that she could beat somebody of this caliber before I pick her.
That all makes sense. I think Sean V here watching in chat, I think this is a good point. Rose 4-1 as an underdog with 4 finishes. To me, Rose, like I said, a little bit of a confusing fighter, and I do think she's a fighter that I'm more comfortable betting her when she's a dog because you get that number, and you just never know which version is going to show up. So give me the plus number on Rose. I think that makes a lot of sense. Certainly like her price tag at 7,300 on DraftKings. Drew, I think if Rose wins this fight, pretty likely to score decently, especially at that price tag. But yeah, I could see this one going either way. Your thoughts here, Drew?
Yeah, I was kind of leaning to avoid this fight, and I think Matt Labs talked me back on to just playing some Rose here. At 8,900 for Manon, I just didn't see it. I got her at 29% and Rose at 22%. And again, at 8,900, there's some better upside plays you can take in the 9K range. There's arguably some better upside plays in the 8K range besides Manon. So yeah, I'm going to side with Rose here. She doesn't grade out great. And when I look through the numbers, she doesn't seem that far off of what they're playing Manon at, round by round. So yeah, I think I'm going to go off the board a little bit. I'll fade Manon here and I'll play Rose, and I'll just play it around 20%. So it'll be around the field, and I just won't lose to the field. I won't gain much. I'll just try to get the right combo with fading Manon.
Fair enough. That is Fiorot and Namajunas. Let's get to the main event. Big boy division, Cyril Gane, Sergey Spivak. I think another really interesting fight here. Almost lined exactly the same as the previous fight. It is Cyril Gane, who is minus 180 or so. Obviously coming off that I don't know if you call it embarrassing, but just got dismantled by the return of John Jones in his last fight. Spivak has been really impressive in his last 3, a guy who finishes often. But both guys, I don't know. Like Cyril Gane's, I kind of throw him in that super technical defensive style of fighter, which is kind of rare for heavyweight division. This is another one, Mad Lab, that I'm a little bit torn on. Who's going to win this fight? I do think it could go either way, but curious to hear your thoughts on Spivak and Cyril Gane.
Yeah, you said it. You were very nice when you actually said that you don't know if it was embarrassing. It was a very embarrassing loss. Yeah. You know what I mean, to God, to John Jones, and I'm saying that with respect to him. But when you have a guy that's got that kind of genetic code, bro, built like that, athletic like that, good striking like that, there's no excuse to fold like that. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are pigeonholing that, and they're saying, well, he's just not good. He's a complete bust. But you got to take, when you watch a fight like that, you got to take 2 elements, and you got to say, which one is it? Did he get outclassed? Was he just technically not good enough, or did he choke? He choked. He did, had nothing to do with his talent, had nothing to do with, couldn't he have a better fight if he was locked in, or maybe nobody was around and they were doing it in the training room? Has nothing to do with that. The guy literally choked. I just don't think he chokes again. I think that that pressure is off him now. He's never going to fight John Jones again. That fight will never happen again. He's accepted that he lost that opportunity. And when you look at a guy like Spivak, why would they headline Gane in France and bring a guy from Moldova that literally he comes in, he fights, you never hear from him again until he fights again? I like Spivak. I think I won a lot of money with Spivak just because I like how people don't tend to give him attention because he's not really a marketable guy. He doesn't talk. He doesn't have all this crazy social media. He comes, he does his job and leaves. But when you look at the gap in just the athletic ability, the size, the strength, the know-how, it's hard to ignore Gane. I think Gane has the ability to completely outclass him on the feet if he decides to stand there. And I think Spivak's only opportunity to win this fight is if he gets his fight to the ground. Can he get to the fight to the ground? Yes, but there were times where he got the fights to the ground, and these guys are getting right back up and getting right back up. He's not going to give Spivak nearly the same respect or fear that he gave to John Jones. It's a completely different animal. He's going to almost be insulted if Spivak gets on top of him. He's going to find a way back to his feet. I think Gane wins this fight. I think this is a fight where people are giving him a little bit too much shit and giving Spivak a little bit too much credit in a fight like this. I don't think that UFC wants him to lose this fight. In France, they really have nothing with Spivak if he wins. there's no really gain for the company and for the machine. So I do like Gane. I think Gane's either going to coast to an easy decision, or Gane's going to catch him with something sometime in the mid-fight and end up knocking him out. I think that Spivak is going to have some success early, but I think eventually he's going to start struggling. It's going to start weighing on his gas tank, the takedown attempts, the failed takedown attempts, the him getting up, taking him down again. And then Gane's just going to kind of, dance around him, pick and choose his spots and catch him with something late. Yeah,
my favorite bet on this card is Ciryl Gane to win by decision plus 750. Seems crazy to me. I mean, Gane, if you can avoid the wrestling, keep it at distance. I mean, we've seen Gane already win 2 5-round decisions not so long ago. And Gane doesn't have that much power, right? I think there's a chance you could just kind of dance around him, like you said, use the defense, coast to a decision win. Wouldn't be surprised to see him do that, especially coming off that brutal loss to John Jones. So, yeah, I do like Gane by decision plus 750. You can get that over at DraftKings. Let's go over to you, Drew. I think this one is interesting from a DFS perspective too, because, Gane hasn't typically scored all that well, even in his wins, right? He's just not a super high output guy, doesn't get a ton of takedowns, doesn't have that much power. He is expensive at 8,700, but we know, the main event, the 5-round fights are always very heavily owned. So curious to hear your thoughts here from a DFS perspective.
Yeah, it's a kind of an unusual 5-round fight. I think his projection's right around 80 points anywhere you look, and his ceiling's right around 120, which we just saw 190 last week or the week before. Like, for a 5-round fight, it's one of the worst scoring ones I've seen, or at least projected for. And I think that's why his ownership is pretty low for a 5-round fight. I have Ciryl Gane at 37%, and I have Sergey at 27.5%. So I think Vegas thinks Ciryl does something in the first round, and if he doesn't, it's going to go to distance, actually. I think this fight slows down as the fight progresses.
Yeah.
So I actually like your call to take plus 750 for a decision, because I see his odds get longer in a round 3 or round 4 fight. I think it gets closer. So I think you got to have exposure to both sides, but I would definitely lean much, much higher on Ciryl Gane here. As far as like a rating, I mean, Ciryl Gane just fits the bill, I think, at the price, 8,700. If he wins, he's probably going to be on the optimal lineup any way you shake it. Even with the lower output, it's just the way the card is set up. So I'll have some Spivak. I don't love it, but Ciryl Gane will be my play. I think my first run of lineups earlier today, I think I had 100% Ciryl Gane, so I had to taper that down just a little bit. But like I said, at 8,700, his range of outcomes at 120 points or something like that is going to be optimal. So you got to have some exposure, and I like his skill set quite a bit.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll have some exposure to both. I think I actually have, I'm going to bet that Gane decision prop, but in DFS, I actually kind of like Spivak to, like, if Spivak wins this fight.
What's the odds for a double chance for knockout or decision?
For Gane?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. Yeah, Gane by KO is like even odds, and then decision plus 750. I mean, I'll take the big number there every time. But that's Gane, Spivak. That's UFC France. Again, starts tomorrow morning. So get in there in the contest early if you haven't done so. Check out all of Mad Lab's write-ups over at Run Pier Sports. And of course, if you want to join us, you can use the promo code NFL17, get you 17% off the lifetime of your subscription. We will be back next week, right? I think big card, pay-per-view next week. So it should be a fun one. Hopefully we'll get JSU back in here and we'll break that one down. But for now, that will do it for us. For Drew, for Mad Lab, I am DC, and we will check you next time.
Later, boys.